Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into this channel. For those of you who are watching live, and those of you who will be watching the replays, I really do appreciate your time to spend this evening together with me. I'm joined in studio by my friend Shawn, who will talk more about himself after this, but let me just first start by bringing him on screen for you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Shawn. How are you doing this evening, Shawn?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's been a wonderful week with my family together.
Excellent. Tell us more about yourself. You hold more accolades than I do, so tell us briefly about yourself.
Well, I've led a very adventurous life, put it that way. I've had many careers in my life in various fields. I started off as a machinist, working my way through college, paying my way, and then became an aerospace engineer. Worked for General Dynamics for many years, and then decided to move to Europe. And at that time, I moved into the money management area, and that has brought me to Bermuda. And along the way, I've always been on a long search for what I consider the truth, because I grew up in a Catholic family, and I knew very early in my age that that wasn't the truth. So I have been searching for 43 years, essentially, since I was 14 after leaving the church. And that's part of what I'm going to share with you tonight.
Excellent, excellent. So the truth, that sounds so broad. That sounds so broad. But I guess slowly by slowly we are going to dig deep into understanding the truth and realities of the world. You've written a tripartite book that kind of focuses on the same topic. Tell us briefly about it.
Well, this is something I never intended to do. And it all came about because my 20-year-old daughter, when she was away at school 8 months ago, suffered a stroke. Mm-hmm. And that, of course, was a huge blow to our family. Definitely. But it did something for me. It kind of kicked me in the butt and said, you got to do something with all this knowledge that you've gained over the last 43 years. Mm-hmm. And I started writing. And so in 6 months I wrote the 3 books, which is something that I've spent a long time learning. Never really had the best way of sharing that information with people. Mm-hmm. Because I think part of gaining knowledge is the journey itself. I think, as you understand.
I do.
When you're young, people can tell you something that is very wise, but unless you really walk the path, you don't really accept it as your own wisdom. Mm-hmm.
And that is also excellent. Thank you so much, Keyboard Kisok. Wonderful to see you again on screen. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask. We are going to talk about reality. When you're caught up between two worlds, and that's the title of Shawn's book. He has written 3 parts of the book, and amazing read. I've read part 1 of the book, almost finishing it. So we're going to discuss more as we go. Now, Shawn, let me ask you, you talk about experience, and you say that, someone can share with you words of wisdom, but until you practice, until you put that word into practice, that it makes sense to you. How do you think the world is doing today with the knowledge that is out there? Do you think we are headed towards the right direction?
Well, that's what motivated me for writing the first book, is that I believe that 2,500 years ago, mm-hmm. people had more wisdom than they do today.
Yes.
There's this battle between religion and science, mm-hmm. and if you go back in history on how that battle actually occurred, mm-hmm. it was pretty destructive when you think about it.
Yes.
Science, modern science, is relatively young since Galileo, kind of rescued it from the church.
Yes.
And there's a lot of knowledge there, but not a lot of wisdom.
Yes.
And you agree with that also, don't you?
Yes, we look at somebody like Copernicus, who basically revolutionized our understanding of existence and the universe. And you talk about wisdom and knowledge, that there can be lots of knowledge but less wisdom. What is what here? How do we know when we have knowledge and wisdom?
It's a very difficult question to explain, and the second book I wrote is torn between the worlds of rhetoric and wisdom. Rhetoric we get a lot of. We hear a lot of things that sound good, but once we start digging deeper into what people are saying, we find fault. It's not really true what they're saying, but it sounds really good.
Yes.
Finding real true wisdom in our world today is very difficult. It always has been difficult.
Yes.
So you look at somebody like Erwin Schrödinger, who I bring up in the book.
Yeah.
Schrödinger was with all these, very intelligent people at the dawn of quantum mechanics.
Yes.
With Niels Bohr, with Max Planck, with Albert Einstein.
Yeah.
Really the most intelligent, knowledgeable people of that time.
Yes.
And very smart people.
I call them people who live ahead of their time.
Yes.
Yes.
But he was the only one to ask a very important question. And that was, why are we so stupid?
Interesting.
Right?
Yes. At the dawn of quantum physics.
Yes. How could we be so blind that we didn't see that Newtonian physics was leading us down a blind path? And so Schrödinger did what Galileo did, is he went back in time and said, how did this happen? How did we become blind to something that we should have understood? And if you follow Schrödinger's path, you can see how he gained wisdom.
Yes.
By asking really the difficult questions. It took him back to the founders of science.
Yes.
And when you see that a Pythagoras or Euclid or Democritus or Archidamus, these are names that we know today because their theories from 2,500 years ago are still valid today.
Exactly, yes. Pythagorean theorem, everyone knows about it.
Yes. That's wisdom.
That's wisdom.
That's foresight. It's taking the knowledge they have and really understanding the world around them, creating something that is timeless.
Yes.
That's wisdom. Right?
Yes.
Today in science we have a lot of theory. A lot of it is speculation.
Yes.
But there's very little wisdom in what's being looked at today.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for grappling with such a difficult question that I asked. You talk about wisdom and knowledge, but then I think what we are really trying to find out, or trying to dig deep into, is reality. How would you describe reality, or what is reality in your own perspective?
It's a good question because a number of people are struggling with this concept of reality and truth. Within the scientific world, there are very few truths.
Yes.
The number of scientific laws, it's a small number of things that are true, that it's an experiment you can do, it's an experiment somebody else can do, and they all come to the same answer.
Yes.
That's, to me, reality. That's a truth. Right?
Yes.
Would
gravity qualify as a reality?
Well, that's a good question.
Or a truth, or both.
Well, because it's only been implied. I'm not sure if there is a. It's only been implied. It hasn't really been measured.
Yes.
Exactly. So, I guess its impact is a truth. Yes. And when it comes to studying, current events or historical events, it's considered that when you have three independent viewpoints and they all have the same answer,
yes,
that's considered to be a truth.
Yes.
Or a fact. And even today in current events, we rarely get three people who say the same thing.
Yes.
Three independent people. So finding historical realities and historical fact is difficult.
Yes. Thanks. I think in one of my book, which is God and Evil, I describe what truth is, and I would like to hear your opinion on this definition of truth. Let me just find the page real quick, because reality and truth are things that we have been a challenge since the age of knowledge and wisdom. Let me see. Yes, truth, doubt, axioms, truth. Yes, I say that truth can be defined as the coherence of a statement or a word and its ability to pass the test of proof in a justified way. Let me read it again. Oops, I just closed the page. But anyway.
No, I heard what you said. I'm thinking about.
So a truth must be justified. Truth must have a proof of existence or a proof. But there's some things that we can't really prove, yet we consider them truths. What are your views on this?
For example, what are you thinking of when you said there are some things that we can't prove, but we consider them truths?
Let's talk of whichever way you want to look at it, either creation or the Big Bang theory. The fact is that we do exist, and we know that for us to exist, we must have come from something or somewhere. Or must have been designed by an intelligent being. But how do we prove of this? Yes, we know that we do exist, but how do we know the truth of where everything came from? That is the kind of the truth that I'm trying to look at.
Yes, I mean I don't know that we can, or we actually should know the truth of that. I've asked a lot of people the question about, there's three basic questions.
Tony Toronto, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing? Just a minute. Toronto. I lived in Toronto for about 7 years, so good to see someone from Toronto join us in this scope. Back to you again, Shawn.
Well, kind of the three basic questions that go around philosophy and religion for me are, why are we here? where did we come from, and where are we going?
Excellent questions.
Now, that's kind of what you asked.
Yes.
You know, where did we come from? And to me, those are questions that you should either search for in your philosophy or in your religion. And if they're not answering those three questions, then you should keep searching.
Yes.
But whether or not that can be a truth, I think it needs to be a belief. Because if we could prove everything, there would be no reason for belief or faith. In other words, I think there's some things that can't be proven to be a truth. And it's in your daily life. You know, you can't know the outcome of my decision. You have to take a leap of faith. Right? And without that ability to take that leap of faith, you can't really advance your life. You know that you're an entrepreneur. You have to have faith in yourself at some point.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. That's an interesting way of tackling that question. You talk about having faith and or belief, and to believe, you don't have to have a proof for one to believe. Belief, according to how I describe it in this book, God and Evil, is something that you accept as a truth with or without a proof.
Yes.
And interesting to hear you also talk about the same. Do you have anything else to add on top of that?
Well, you asked me a question that I kind of sidestepped, and I have a belief on where we came from.
Yes.
I don't have a truth on where we came from.
That's a good response. I like that better than the first one.
Because the other one was a different answer.
Yes.
No, but as a scientist myself, I find it really intriguing that the scientific community all agree that the Big Bang happened.
Yes.
Yet none of them will speculate on what happened a minute before the Big Bang. And that's where belief comes in.
Yes.
The founders of science, and this is what you'll see in the third book.
Yes.
The founders of science had a belief on why the Big Bang happened. I think Christianity has a belief, and Judaism has a belief of when it happened.
Yeah.
It didn't even deserve a paragraph in the Bible. It just is a kind of a run-on sentence.
Yes.
But there was a reason to create the material world.
Yeah.
And that happened 13.8 or 13.7 billion years ago. And I think if you can believe that, you can kind of understand the magnitude of our existence, which is pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool.
It is. It is. Now, science have called this quantum malfunction. That for us to exist today, we are a result of quantum malfunction. Which to me is very interesting, because if we are a result of a malfunction, what would have happened if we were built strategically to be who we are today, that the universe could be what it is? What is your take on this?
Well, I mentioned in the book this the concept of intelligent design. I when I first heard of it, I thought, this is interesting, but it's been approached in a very backwards way. Mm-hmm. It was an attack on science's, kind of cornerstone of Darwinism and evolution.
Yes. And
it wasn't a good attack. I mean, it wasn't a very logical attack.
Yeah.
But take a look at the theory for the universe today. Mm-hmm. Science understands 5% of the universe.
Yeah.
The other 95%, it's either dark matter or dark energy.
Yeah.
They have no idea what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty big mistake, or a pretty big question.
Yes, 95%.
So, and what is intriguing is if really 95% of the universe is something that we don't know, mm-hmm. we should be able to discover that, in my opinion, here. Mm-hmm. Right? We should be able to see it around us in our solar system, in the planet. And that's where wisdom and philosophy should come in. Mm-hmm. Because there's a lot of indication that dark energy exists around us in our world.
Yeah.
People call it light energy. Mm-hmm. People who work in the spaces of pranic healing and Reiki and all these other practices,
yeah.
They call it light energy. They don't call it dark energy. Mm-hmm. And bringing all these things together, all these experiences together into a model that is holistic, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like medicine. I can go to a Chinese doctor and have acupuncture, and he can cure my ailment.
Yeah.
Or I can go to a Western doctor and get some pharmaceuticals, and he can cure my ailment.
Yes.
Or I can go to a healer, mm-hmm. And they can cure my ailment. Mm-hmm. Well, it has to be bigger than just science if different approaches actually work.
Yeah.
Right? There has to be more going on mm-hmm. in the world than what science recognizes.
Yeah.
And there was, I don't know if you saw that study that just came out today from NASA to look at the degradation of the brains of the people who've been in the space station.
Yeah. No, I did not. I did not check it.
All of them have had brain damage.
Oh.
The people who spent 6 months or more in the space station, they've all had brain damage.
Mm-hmm. Is it because of the rays, the rays that percolate through the body? I'm told you can visually see the rays go through you when you close your eyes.
There's a couple of different things. People who are very naturally oriented, mm-hmm. they know about the energy that's in nature.
Yes.
The positive energy positive energy that's in the forest and in the water.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist in space.
Mm-hmm.
That healing energy of the earth that we live on,
yes,
doesn't exist in space. Mm-hmm. So, to me, that's an indication that even though they're trying to recreate an environment in space, they don't have the nurturing energy that the earth actually provides.
Yes.
Which to me is dark energy. It's the energy that they're missing.
Yes.
The scientists are missing.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You talk about space, and I'm so into space. Like, it is something that I really do like a lot, and For some reason, I've been asking my wife to get me telescopes and more telescopes and more telescopes because I'm so interested in understanding what is going on up there. Talk about truth and knowledge. I want to know. And that's why I keep on asking her for more telescopes, and because I want to know what is going on. But, you know, the way I look at especially International Space Station, to me it's like we have simulated creation. Depends on if you believe in creation or not, whether you believe in a God that designed everything, the universe, or not. But if we do believe in a God that designed everything, then to come up with something like International Space Station that goes round the sun, that also goes round the earth at the same time, I think to some degree, we've simulated that supreme being in a way. Do you think the same? Are we on the same frequency on this one? Or, first of all, you don't believe in in an intelligent designer to begin with?
No, it's not that I don't believe in an intelligent design. I don't like how they presented it.
Yes.
I mean, they were... Because I do believe in intelligent design.
Yeah.
Intelligent in that if you look at how, as the Earth cooled,
Mm-hmm.
all of the right components were in place
Mm-hmm.
to digest the molten rock and make it a livable place.
Yes.
The bacterias, you know, all the micro life
Mm-hmm.
created in a relatively quick time
Yes.
something that was very livable. And have you ever read a book called Rare Earth?
Rare Earth?
Yes.
Yes, I think I've read a review on it. I've not read the actual book.
But if you get to the end of that book, you realize that everything was right about the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And without the moon, life could not exist.
Yes.
And it's something that people don't necessarily understand, that in order to get intelligent life, you need billions of years
Mm-hmm.
of peace and quiet.
Yes.
Right? No supernovas, no asteroid impacts, no catastrophic events, no black holes that go by.
Yeah.
You need peace and quiet for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Earth has had. And the moon has kept the Earth in balance.
Mm-hmm.
Because without the moon, you can, the Earth may have stopped spinning like Mars did.
Yes.
The
would be
moon really
catastrophic
keeps the Earth in balance.
if the Earth stopped
Stop spinning.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting book because it says all of the things that have to happen in order to give a planet the peace and quiet that it needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it helps people appreciate the Earth a whole lot more. At least it did me. It made me appreciate, looking out in the sky and seeing what's out there and how magnificent it is.
Yeah. Wonderful.
To me, that's intelligent design. It's billions and billions of years of long-term planning.
Mm-hmm. Billions and billions of years of long-term planning. Now, let me ask you something. Christianity have got this so wrong, and it was about dating the age of the earth. And I can't remember very well the figure that they gave it, but if we look at archaeological records, and going with the carbon dating and everything that has happened over the years, we find that Christianity did not predict or did not tell us the exact or close to true age of our universe. Is this something that we need to put a blame on them and consider them misleading in a way, or do you think we have room for forgiveness to our brothers and sisters who?
Well, it's an interesting question,
Yes.
and that's what a lot of my work has been doing, because as I told you, I was raised in a Catholic family, and
Yeah.
by the time I was 14, I was an engineer. So by the time I was 14, I just said, there's something wrong with this. This is not right.
Yeah.
And early Christianity, in the 2nd and 3rd century,
Mm-hmm.
they had married the Greek philosophers, the Pythagorases, the Socrates, the Euclids.
Yes. Socrates
They had married.
my favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they married that knowledge and that wisdom
Mm-hmm.
with the wisdom that Jesus brought,
Mm-hmm.
together with the Jewish wisdom.
Yes.
And in the 3rd century, 2nd and 3rd century,
Mm-hmm.
there was unity among the religions.
Yes.
And the theory that was presented in Christianity was something called the restoration of all things,
Mm-hmm.
which had this long view of restoring creation to its former glory. Now, what happened was, in the 6th century, the barbarian Roman Emperor Justinian
Mm-hmm.
Declared that heresy.
Yes.
And it just blows my mind that it was a pagan emperor
Mm-hmm.
who declared early Christianity heresy.
Yeah.
And then what did he do? And this is the thing about studying history.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now he had to protect Rome from all the barbarians who lived around him,
Yeah.
because these heretics are now barbarians.
Mm-hmm.
And he just created all the heretics. Well, following that event, we have something that's called the Dark Ages.
Yes.
Justinian eliminated enlightened people from Western civilization.
Mm-hmm.
And what was left were just nothing but barbarians and darkness. And it took, 800, 900 years to crawl out of that hole?
Mm-hmm.
So in that time, what the church did is the church adopted Aristotle as their scientific reference,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, Aristotle was a poor student of Plato's.
Yes.
And you can blame all the falseness on Aristotle.
Yes.
He's the one who said the Earth was the center of the universe. He's the one who, helped the Catholics, or the Roman Catholics, to count back the generations and say the Earth is 3,000 years older, or however old it is.
Yes.
So you can blame Aristotle.
Yes, on that. So one thing I find interesting is that you have a science background, and you also like philosophy. And most scientists have considered philosophy dead, which to me doesn't make sense. Why we would find philosophy dead, yet it is like the basic of all truths. Like for us to even know what we are today, we need to lean on philosophy to kind of describe some of these things to us. What is your take on this? Do you think philosophy is dead?
I think philosophy has lost its way.
Yeah.
Philosophy at the time of Socrates, as you probably know, was the third step. The first step was to learn logic. So you would learn geometry, mathematics, to learn about logic.
Yes.
Your next step would be then to study natural sciences. So learn about biology, about physics, learn about how the world actually functions.
Yes.
And then the third step is then to start to then speculate on why the world functions that way. And see, it's the second step that Aristotle didn't take. He didn't understand how the world worked. And then he started speculating on why it works.
Yes.
And obviously the speculations were wrong because they were based on poor science. So today in university, you don't have that rigor. You don't actually study the natural sciences before you study philosophy.
Yes.
And that's where I mean it's gone astray. So I think today we have an opportunity to take scientists who are looking for more answers to help them to become philosophers. Like Schrodinger became a philosopher.
Yeah.
Like Einstein became a philosopher. Right?
Yes.
I think they have the best opportunity to help to bring wisdom to science.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was reading about Isaac Newton, and the article that I was reading said that Newton wrote more. I don't know whether to call them theological or spiritual articles or books more than he did science. Do you think this was? Do you think this is true? First of all, and if it is true, do you think he had a better understanding of God than what we know today?
I haven't studied Newton himself. I've studied more the ancient philosophers.
Yes.
And that was the case. I mean, Pythagoras was a musician. Pythagoras was a physician.
Yes.
And he was a spiritual leader of his community. And the interesting thing about philosophy, as you know, is it becomes holistic.
Yes.
Right? It's science and spirituality. They need to fit together.
Yes.
They need to explain each other. They can't be two separate things. Now that existed before, Rome essentially destroyed it.
Yeah.
In the early Christianity and also in the ancient Greeks, and we have the opportunity to refresh that.
Yeah.
But it takes people like you, it takes people like me who are willing to stick their necks out and say, we have to change what we're doing.
Excellent, excellent. Let's go to right and wrong. We've talked about truth and and knowledge. How do we know what is right and what is wrong? Or should we base them on ethics? And if we do, where do we get our ethics or morality from?
That's a little bit more difficult question. Difficult because I haven't really addressed it
Yes.
in that perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is one of the major failures of historians
Mm-hmm.
not to consider that question,
Interesting.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because a historian will say, well, of course, Rome had slaves, and that's how the economy works,
Mm-hmm.
and that was normal. They wouldn't say, well, Rome was violating basic human rights by keeping slaves
Mm-hmm.
and stealing people from other lands,
Yes.
whereas there were other cultures who did not practice slavery.
Mm-hmm.
There were other cultures where women had equal rights, where women were cherished
Yes.
and protected,
Mm-hmm.
and leaders of their community. Um, so, to me, I think it comes down to what we know today are, basic human rights, what we should give our children, what we should, give the people in our community.
Mm-hmm.
I think that determines what is right and what is wrong.
Yes.
And we should apply that everywhere in the world and throughout history.
Yes.
We know what Hitler did was wrong. I mean, people shouldn't deny that.
Yeah.
But history tends to do that by just, what do you call it? They don't personalize it. It's just a fact.
Yeah. Interesting response there on. So it is something that we should blame history on, because, to be honest, I don't think I've ever read a history book that says that this is the foundation of morality, or this is the foundation of our ethics and what we know of today as good and bad. So I know if I ask a Christian the same question, they will they will direct me to the Bible as the source of morality and ethics. Your take on this?
Boy, that's a really loaded gun.
And feel free to pass if.
No, because the Bible has been used to kill more people than Hitler ever killed.
Yes.
Right? People have used it to justify their actions, which is abhorrent. What I will agree with is that at the time of Moses,
Mm-hmm.
there were no laws in the world.
Yes.
And, getting the first laws for society was an important step for civilization.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The Decalogues.
The Ten Commandments, yes.
Yes.
Just the basic laws of society.
Mm-hmm. Thou shalt not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was important.
Mm-hmm.
If you understood that prior to that time, somebody like Abraham, he didn't know that he shouldn't kill his son.
Mm-hmm.
It seems very simple for us today, but at that time, those laws didn't exist.
Yeah.
I mean, we had cannibalism in Western society 5,000-6,000 years ago.
Yeah.
We know today that that's probably not the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think a Christian should answer your question with love thy neighbor as yourself.
Mm.
that's the only law we ever used in our household raising my daughter.
Mm-hmm. Is that the golden rule?
Yeah.
Or do as you'd like others to do unto you? What either one of them, I think.
Yes.
Love your neighbors, you love yourself. That also speaks volume.
That was the only law in our house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it has something to do with my view of child rearing, is that if you have a rule-based household,
Mm-hmm.
then your kids will always try and say, well, you didn't have a rule for that one.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's not appearing in the rule book.
Yes, but if you have a philosophy-based household,
Mm-hmm.
then everybody knows what philosophy we support within the household.
Yeah. So, do you think I would like to get your opinion on this. This is just a random question I'm throwing out there. Do we have a purpose as human beings? Do we have a purpose? And what would that purpose be?
You asked me not to disclose too much about my books.
Oh. Good defense.
Yes, no. I think, each person has their specific purpose
Mm-hmm.
in their life. I tell people that I believe in reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in free will.
Yes.
And I believe in fate.
Mm-hmm.
And people will look at me and say, well, how can you believe in free will and fate at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
But it goes like this, that what goes around comes around.
Yes.
So if I live a horrible life in this life,
Mm-hmm.
my next life, I will pay for that.
Yeah.
So my free will has caused my fate in my next life.
Mm-hmm.
And so each person has their own path that they need to go on. Some people are here to, help to bring new ideas and encourage other people.
Mm-hmm.
Other people are here just to, sit through their prison sentence, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about it, they're having to pay back something that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's the only way I can explain the huge differences in the world of how people have to live their lives.
Mm.
The pain and suffering that goes on around the world. I can only accept that if I know that particular person will have plenty of chances to have a beautiful life.
Wonderful answer. So I have a very good friend of mine who likes to come into my scopes every now and then. I'm pretty sure he will be joining us soon. And I would like to know what you think about this, about transmigration of souls. Do you believe in transmigration of souls? That if we live a happy life, if we live a good life today, we will be transmigrated into something else that is better, at the end of our earthly, I don't know whether to call it earthly, but yes, our earthly life today.
I'm not so sure I understand the concept and the way that you put it forward, but let me try and answer.
Yes.
The philosophy today
Mm-hmm.
teaches becoming one with the one.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that in the way that it is thought, because I believe in individuality.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in, diversity to the max.
Yes.
Because that's what we see. We see diversity.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't believe in the concept of I'm going to die and then I'm going to somehow melt into something else.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's why I don't like the Trinity concept and all that. But I think that we will be, through our good deeds, we do become purer and better and more beautiful and more gifted.
Yes.
But I don't think we lose our individuality.
Mm. Interesting. As myself, I'm a Christian, but I try to play as neutral as I can in these scopes because I want to be accommodative, and I don't want to intimidate people who hold different worldviews from me, because I want to learn as much as I can from them. So the fact that I'm a Christian to me doesn't necessarily mean that I block people from other worldviews from debating and arguing and negotiating with me. I like to do that because it makes life more interesting and fun, and we get to learn together. And a Christian, if I was to ask a Christian the same question, they would tell me that there's something called heaven. So in the afterlife, let me call it afterlife. In the afterlife, we will go to heaven somewhere and hang out with, all the beings that existed before our time. What is your take on this?
The reason that my book is called, Torn Between Two Worlds.
Yes.
And the last one is torn between the material and the ethereal world.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Or you could call it the spiritual world.
Yes.
It's this place that we go after we die.
Mm-hmm.
I won't necessarily call it heaven.
Yeah.
Because it has really different characteristics depending on where you end up.
Mm-hmm.
Just put it that way.
Yes.
There's a lot of literature about out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, about communications with people who have died and what they experience on the other side, as you said.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I've read a lot of those throughout my life.
Yeah.
And trying to create a worldview that actually incorporates that as part of a reality.
Yeah.
There's too much of it to throw it out, to say it's fairy tales or whatever.
Yes.
There's too much information there, and it's too detailed.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, there's one book, well, there's actually two books that kind of go together, but one book from Carl Wickland, who was a psychologist who helped people with their mental illness.
Yes.
And he did it by helping them to dispel spirits who were hanging around and causing, mental disorders.
Yes.
Schizophrenia, depression, these sort of disorders.
Yeah.
And that really opened up my eyes to, how these, what Christians used to call lost souls, a couple hundred years ago in Christianity, how they can cause damage in people's lives. They're not necessarily, demons or something very nasty, but they're causing people problems.
Yes.
In Christianity, every time people went to church, they would pray for the lost souls. Christianity doesn't do that nowadays because they don't really realize that there are all these spirits out there who walk around and are just hanging around causing trouble. I don't know if you watched the television series Ghost Whisperer.
Yes.
But it's a very accurate depiction, at least in the first couple of seasons, of what really happens. I mean, I don't know if you've experienced any of those, bumps in the night or kind of ghostly experiences, but they're unnerving. They cause problems with people physically and mentally. And it's our job as Christians to help them. That's what Wickman did. He just essentially helped these lost souls to find their way.
Yeah.
And stop hurting his patients. So is that heaven where these lost souls are hanging out? Maybe not.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Maybe not. But I do believe in an ethereal world, a world of energy, because we've talked in the past about reincarnation, and there's enough evidence to show that children are born with prior knowledge of another life. There's enough evidence out there to be convincing that actually happens. So where did that consciousness exist during the time between them dying and then coming back to a new life? There has to be a place where that is.
Yes.
Right? And it has to be a place of a different quality, a different material of some sort.
Yes.
It's not just mist, right? Because when you read something like Wickman, is that these souls, they didn't know they were dead, but they'd been wandering around for hundreds of years. They still had on the same clothes that they had on. They didn't understand that they were actually dead.
Yeah.
So it can't look much different on the other side than it does here. And that exists with many, many different stories that spirits don't realize that they're dead because they look the same, they feel the same. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, in my in my book that will be coming, I'm talking about dimensions, which is pretty intense. I didn't know that dimensions could be so complex, and I'm discussing things like when you move to the fourth dimension, fifth dimension, when you start discussing about tesseracts and things like that. And your third book talks about almost the same thing, but in a different concept. You talk about, caught up between two worlds, but one of them you call ethereal.
Ethereal.
Yeah,
Yes,
ethereal. And what's the other word? I'm trying to think on top of my head.
Or spiritual?
Yes. Kind of material and spiritual. I think that's what you call it, right?
Yes, material, or in the various communities, it's called the ethereal plane.
Yeah. So I'm still doing a research. I just don't like to write. I like to research and know more about whatever I'm going to write down, and then write on what is missing, the piece that is missing on those. So do you believe that there is I don't want to call it quite parallel to universe because I don't know how parallel it is. It could be oblique, it could be it could be non-oblique. But do you believe that there is a parallel universe to ours?
Well, yes. I mean, in some instances, it's coexisted.
Yes.
Like I said, if there are, ghosts walking among us, they're in a different world, but they're in the same place as we are.
Yes.
There are other parts of that are very, very different. There's many different places.
Yes.
In this ethereal world, which some people experience it differently. I mean, everybody experiences it differently, so they have their own concept of what they saw, or if it was an out-of-body experience or a near-death experience or a clairvoyant experience.
Yes.
They have their own perception. And what I tried to do is take all of those various perceptions and put them together and say, well, it actually fits into one place with a whole lot of different areas. Or if you think about the universe, and it's kind of big, and you think about the ethereal world being bigger than this universe. Yeah. In other words, the universe is a subset of the ethereal world. Yes. There's a lot of possibilities for what the ethereal world could look like.
I was sharing the same on Twitter. Yes.
Do you, I'll ask you a question. Do you have studied any of the little people? Elves and gnomes and fairies?
No, I have not. But I would be interested if...
I haven't studied them. I think it's interesting that very diverse cultures have the same creatures. And to me, it's an indication that these creatures actually exist, and they're ethereal creatures. They're creatures that children can see, or some children can see, and clairvoyant people can see. It's just another indicator that there's actually more diversity in the other world than there is in this world.
Yeah. Do you think that could be as a result that we all share common ancestry? So kind of the history has been told through different languages and through different forms, that we, to some degree, we share backgrounds on, the oratorial stories, if I can call them that.
There is a lot of shared history, definitely.
Yes.
Definitely.
Good. Well, it's been amazing. It's been amazing hosting you, Shawn, and thank you so much for bringing all the wisdom and knowledge and research that you've done. One thing I do appreciate with you is that you question the world, you question the truth, and from questioning the truth, you know more, or you try to dig deep into understanding the meaning of life, which is very important to me.
Well, I really appreciate you spending so much time with me tonight and asking very good questions, very difficult questions. And those are the type of discussions that I like to have. I don't like to have, go to parties and just talk about superficial things. I like to talk about things that have meaning. for people.
Exactly, exactly. And the problem is, it's maybe your place is a bit different, but for me, it is very hard for me to find people who are open-minded and like to discuss things that that they are not comfortable with. So if a topic is against their belief or against their principle, then they feel like we should not even go there, kind of thing.
Well, my hat is off to you for how open you are and how curious you are, because it's a really honorable characteristic, having curiosity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate that. And I really also appreciate your open-mindedness to even come to the show and discuss with us a bit on your books and some of your worldviews.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
I wish you a great weekend.
And you as well. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Shawn bringing us live to some of the great things that he's talked about in his book. Amazing, amazing person, and you can read it from his gestures and speech and how he speaks thoughtfully. So once again, I want to thank you so much, Shawn, for coming to my show and telling the world some of the great news that we all need to hear. Once again, thank you so much. And for those of you tuned in, I want to thank you and may God bless you. Now I'm just going to bring it in. Yes, I'm now just going to leave it open to you guys. If you guys have any questions for me, it is a Friday, and you guys know how we always do it on Fridays. We like to have fun. We like to talk tough talks. We like to debate. We like to, go through our week and how it was. So this would be the time. If you guys have any questions for me or for my guest who just left, Shawn, I'm very, very happy and pleased to air these questions, and we'll try to respond to the questions as they come. So this is now time to have fun and to hang out. Keyboard Kisok, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing? What is my book about? Oh, yes, the dimensions. Thank you. Yes, dimension book is insane. It's scientific and at the same time spiritual. So it kind of covers science and religion, if I can call it, or trying to sit in between two worldviews, not with intentions. Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for listening throughout our interview. I really wanted to, appreciate you. And if you guys have any questions that you'd like to ask me or ask Shawn, who just left the screen, I believe he's watching wherever place he is now. Feel free to ask questions, and he'll be glad to respond either on Twitter or right here on Periscope. A great, great person. Also a scientist and a writer himself, has written a number of philosophy books. But yes, about the dimension book that I'm talking about, there is a book that covers one dimension, two dimensions, length, width, height, and then there is a speculation that we could be having more dimensions than just length, width, and height, and that is what I talk about in that book, with a goal of trying to understand deeply some of the things that are the way they are. To put it in a nutshell, because it's such a tough topic, and I'm not a scientist at all. I'm approaching all this from a non-scientist perspective. So it's interesting. It's interesting for sure. Very, very interesting. And I also want to thank Shawn so much for all the insights. What did you guys think about the interview? And how calm Shawn was in terms of responding to the questions, and you know, very methodical, which I was expecting from him as a scientist. You have to be very methodical on how. Thank you so much, Bermuda Shawn, for joining. I'm just talking about you, which is pretty interesting. And if, guys, if you have any questions, Shawn has joined us now, not on screen, but we'll be listening to your questions. Yes, Shawn is very methodical in the way he answers and responds to questions in terms of faith or worldviews and science and philosophy. Those are the things that we were talking about today. And he tackled them methodically, which I like a lot. I like a lot when people are very logical and 4 steps, what we call in philosophy, we would call them premises that lead to a valid. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, I really enjoyed it. And one thing that I also do enjoy is bringing in people with, you know, who view life differently, and think about you know, our purpose as human beings and how we can make this beautiful blue planet that God has given us better. Shawn is one of the people who is doing that and is talking openly about philosophy and science, and just makes life so much interesting. You know, when I started scoping, which is about how long ago? About, let me just say 3 months ago, because I've lost track, but I'll say 3 months ago. It was pretty interesting. I enjoyed scoping, but it made me learn that I only know a limited amount of knowledge or wisdom or truths out there. And I needed extra opinions, people to bring into the show and discuss and interview and ask questions, so that we can, you know, all still learn together from one another, embrace one another's brothers and sisters, and carry on, which is the main reason why I started interviewing questions. So if you know somebody out there who is as interesting as Shawn was, and has got great ideas to share with us, I would really, really appreciate it. They can be business people, they can be entrepreneurs, they can be, you know, leaders, clergymen. I'm inviting all, scientists, atheists, bring them on. I want to interview them. I want to discuss with them. To me, it doesn't matter what kind of worldview you hold. As long as it makes sense to you, I hold my own worldviews, and I can only share with you what I think is the truth, but you don't have to buy them. That's one thing that I like. Not that what I believe in is the absolute total truth. If you hold a different truth, well and good for you. And it's very hard to find, this is what I'm told, that it's very hard to find people who appreciate and welcome people from other worldviews who hold different perspectives of life, as you know, as we do. And that's why I started this scope, because I wanted to make it more interesting and fun and enjoyable. Any other question? Any other question out there? Any other question? I like to ask questions. Otherwise, it is Friday. It's a beautiful, beautiful evening. Well, if you consider it beautiful, having snow. We just had our snow about 10, 15 centimeters the other day. And it basically snowed like the whole day and night. And I spent it shoveling most of the time, which is pretty, can be tiring in a cold, and you're just shoveling. And you're sweating in your big winter jacket. You're sweating in like -5, which doesn't make sense. So your body's all confused. But, you know, things that make life interesting. So that's basically how my week was. Very busy with meetings and meeting interesting people. Yeah. And great things I can share also. You know, been blessed if I can say. I've been blessed big time, big time. Even with a simple thing, something that we can call simple as gift of life. The fact that I'm breathing now, I consider it a blessing, and you know, it's not because of my might or my strength or my wisdom or skills or knowledge that I'm breathing. It is something beyond my own force, beyond my own efforts. So I thank God, because I'm a Christian. I believe in God. I do thank God for having granted me this opportunity to even talk with you guys on this scope. Question time, as I like to say, question time. And you know, I like open-mindedness, because if you are in a journey of trying to find the truth, and Shawn, also feel free to ask me questions. I know you had questions that you wanted to ask me, but I kept on firing questions at you, which makes me also feel terrible as a human being, because, you know, I was just bombarding you with the questions left, right, and center. I do apologize if some questions were too intense, but you know, it is just a matter of having fun and learning from one another and learning from each other. So thank you once again for joining us, Shawn. Really did appreciate. You know, out of all the interviews that I've had about 4 interviews in these scopes. They've been so interesting, and I've been interviewing people who view life in a very different way. And some of the topics that we do discuss are also so intense that if you are not into, you know, mind-boggling issues like existence and how we came to be, it can be intense. It can be intense. But for those of you who missed the interview, you can. What is your thought on Satan? Oh man, that's a tough one. Oh my goodness, why did I say that? I'm taking questions. I should run away. But for those of you who missed my interview with Shawn, I would like you guys to go on Twitter and follow Shawn at Bermuda Shawn _ Shawn. At Bermuda _ Shawn. It is still appearing on my left screen, if you guys can see it. Left or right, depends on how you look at it. I think it's right. But yeah, go on Twitter, follow him. He's got a great books. He's written 3 books that discuss deeply about life and our universe that we live in, wisdom, and everything that you would like to know about existence is in those 3 books. So go out there, talk with him on Twitter, get his copies. You can find them on Amazon, I do believe, and other platforms where you can talk with him more about it, on where you can find his books. I like when people read, because from reading we learn a lot. Now, straight to answering your question about Satan. If you look, I'm going to respond by giving you a synopsis on my problem, on my book, God and Evil, which poses a question on Satan. Did God create Satan? And why evil? Did God create evil? I believe that God created Satan not with intentions to damage or to, you know, bring a curse to this earth, but out of free will, that Shawn also talked about, out of free will that God gave human beings, and so out of free will, which was a great blessing to us, human beings decided to go against the will of God and follow the evil. Now, question that has been asked is, did Satan come in at the fall between Adam and Eve, like when they were falling? Is that the time? But I would say no, because if you look at the tree of knowledge, of wisdom and truth. You know, the tree that tells you what is good and bad. If you read the Bible, it tells us that Satan was already there, and this tree of good and bad, which we can also call free will, was already there, meaning that there was a choice already to be made of either doing good or bad, telling me that Satan was already there when Adam and Eve were created, when they were given these commands. So my view on Satan would be that it is a tough topic for sure, and it is part of God's creation, but not with intention to be bad and cause evil to people, but out of rebellion that Satan did against God, that we have evil today. So that would be my response to it, anchoring my answer on free will. On free will. I don't know if that was a better response. Feel free to ask me other questions, and if you think that I got an A+ in that in trying to respond to that to that answer, I would appreciate an A. If you think it was a D- answer, I would also appreciate that, because you know, I'm not all that knowing. So the little that I know, I try to share with the people the way I understand it. And I'm always open to more research and reading and digesting and trying to figure out what could be the truth out there. So what's your perspective on that? Absolutely, absolutely. And you also talked about spiritual world, and by spiritual world I don't mean like God and, you know, we are Christians, we are Holy Spirit and things like that. No, when I'm talking about spiritual world, I'm talking about things like ghosts and you know, evil spirits and stuff like that. If you look at the story of Jesus, now I'm taking you through New Testament. We're just jumping from Old Testament to New Testament. Even the evil spirits recognized Jesus. And after Jesus crossed the Sea of Galilee, I believe, there was a man who was possessed. And when Jesus got there after the storm, and he met this guy who was possessed, and the evil spirit spoke with Jesus, and they asked Jesus, why have you, son of man, why have you come to finish us before our time? These are, according to the Bible, these are what the evil spirit asked Jesus. Why have you come to finish us before our time? Meaning that the evil spirit also recognized Jesus as the Son of God, and then Jesus rebuked the spirits by casting them into swines, and then these swines went running into the lake. Was it a lake or a sea or something? And they drowned because, and actually these spirits asked God if they could move from this man into the swines that were grazing close by, and that is what Jesus did. So evil do exist. And even evil spirits recognize the power of God, the power of Jesus, which I think is pretty amazing. And then, if you look at the teachings, oh man, I'm getting so theological now. I feel like I should be some reverend or Pope Josh, Pope JM the 16th or something crazy like that. But I'm not. I have a basic, almost elementary understanding of the Bible, so bear it with me. I'm not any reverend of some sort, but if you look at what was I talking about? It kind of ran out of my mind. I do apologize for that. I just went blank. It's been a long week. It's been a long week. I hope you guys had a fantastic week, though. But I'm still trying to remember what I was going to say, and if it comes to me, I will definitely talk to you about it. Must be something relating to Jesus and his teachings. But when it also comes to beliefs and knowledge, I source wisdom and inspiration from all angles and sorts of life and areas of life. One of them being science. I think science has brought us this far. Science has brought us very, very far, technology-wise. Yesterday I was talking with a guy, and we were talking about the future of flying cars, which I think would be so neat. I can't imagine traffic on air of cars just packed in with with flying cars. That would be super, super awesome. And then my question to him was, do you think technology, like we've advanced technology-wise to a point where we can handle flying cars? According to Elon Musk, he says, no, I don't think we can handle flying cars. It takes tremendous amount of knowledge and radio communication and put everything that goes into putting together, the communication. Even in airplanes today, it's pretty intense. It's pretty intense, from finding your reference point when you are flying to, navigating your course. What should my course be if I want to go to New York? What are the wind speeds? What angle should I need to do I need to point my plane so that we can drift along with the wind to the right course? It's just so crazy, like there's so much that still needs to happen before we reach that level. I'm not saying that it is so far, but I'm saying that as at now, I don't think technology allows us to, successfully run that operation. But never say never in the world today, especially with science. We are living now into a world where every motor industry is talking about self-driving cars. Another interesting concept. I can't imagine, going through learning how to drive, all the crazy work, turn left, put signals, and man, you have to brake, you have to look around you, you have to drive defensively. I was like, why? But now we're getting into a time where, technology, you just sit, relax, finish your nap in the car as the car drives you to work. For those of you who like to sleep like I do, I'd be catching my last nap while I am in the car. That is something. That is something. I want to experience that. But it's also scary. It's also scary. And one of the questions that I ask with that is, when it comes to insurance, my car caused an accident. Do I sue the motor industry company, or do I sue, or am I being sued for, or are we going to have insurance covering 6th party, 10th party, and, all the subrogations and all insurance terms that I even can't explain. So many questions that comes to play, but we will navigate them. That is also a good belief. One thing I also like about belief, for those of you who enjoy beliefs and talking philosophy, to doubt does not mean that you don't believe. It just means that you are asking yourself questions about what you already believe. That is what doubt is to me. Like, if I doubt my existence, do I exist? Or am I who I am? I am who I am. Or do I exist? Yeah, let me just start by, do I exist? Of course, yes, I do believe that I do exist, because for me to exist, I have to be thinking rationally about the same thing. I have to be in a position to prove that I do exist, meaning it is unquestionable. Wait, am I contradicting myself? Yes, I think I am. It is questionable. It is questionable, but I do believe that I do exist, and that is where doubt comes in. I think that was brought forward by a philosopher called, Cogito ergo sum. Was that not Socrates, but Cogito ergo sum? Who talked about Cogito ergo sum? That must be... Oh, guys, help me. Who talked about cogito ergo sum? I think, therefore, I am. Exactly, yes, I think, therefore, I am. Oh, man, this philosopher, I should know about this. I think, therefore, I am. Descartes, yes, René Descartes, thank you so much. Oh, man, I'm having geniuses in the building today. Thank you guys so much for being so bright. And you know, one thing that I do appreciate with my audience, the level of intelligence that you guys possess out there, and the fact that you correct me when I'm wrong, which can be embarrassing, you know, when people correcting you on your show. But I mean, if you're here to learn, if we are all here to learn and to gather wisdom from one another, especially if the wisdom that can help us grow as a people, either in our faith or, you know, prepare us mentally, and with the goal of making life better in this beautiful blue planet that we inhabit, it is something that interests me. If we are all here to learn. Oh man, you're laughing. Thank you. Yes, so that's why I like airing this show, because I meet very intelligent people, wiser than I am, engineers. The other day I was discussing with a guy who understands, you know, he understands deep space, dark matter. I mean, we still don't understand a lot about dark matter, but I'm so interested in space. During my interview, I talked about how I've been bugging my wife to get me more telescope, and I keep seeing new telescopes coming, and I'm like, I want that. It's like a kid in a candy shop of some sort. True Donald Smith. Oh man, True Donald Smith, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing today, True Donald Smith? I hope you guys have had a fantastic week. I hope you guys have had an amazing, blessed week. For those of you who are Christians, when I say blessed, you know what I mean. For those of you who don't believe in Christianity, well, I believe nature can also bless us. I mean, after all, we've been blessed with free oxygen. You know, I read a very interesting concept. No, I did not read it, but I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about it. That if we were to have abundant oxygen the same way we have hydrogen, the world would be so terrible. Like, the world would be so bad. You'd think oxygen is a good thing. But if we were to have more oxygen like we do have hydrogen, then life would be so bad, like we won't be able to put down the wildfires. Like, if a forest catches on fire, oh man, that's history. That is history. So the universe was I have to be very careful when I talk about this, especially when I'm going to mention the word intelligent design. Reason being, I'm not going to give you guys any reason. So yes, I think the universe was intelligently designed. Everything was put within the right amount to sustain life. And it blows my mind that out of all the 9 planets, that only Earth is the only place where life has been found. I know we've been talking about, you know, going to Jupiter's, is it Jupiter's moon or Saturn's moon, where they're going to drill and see if there's water in there, and if there's water, then typically water is a mixture or a combination of hydrogen and oxygen, which is basically the main elements required for existence of life, basically. So in our probe to find, the primitive source of life out there, I'm calling them primitive because when we are looking at bacteria, and I'm told that some bacteria have been found to live beyond freezing point and over, and can also exist in extreme heat, in super extreme heats. And these are probes that are happening out there, and people are putting their money into it and trying to figure out, or maybe the government is putting my tax money on it to make life more interesting, especially for those of you taxpayers out there. Well and good to those of you who don't pay any tax. And by the way, let me ask you something. Keyboard Kisok, is this the image of Barack Obama? Is this the image of Barack Obama on your scope? Is this like your role model, or why Barack Obama and not Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton or even Clinton himself? Some of the greatest politicians that I know of. Well, is Donald Trump a politician? I would see him more like a businessman, very successful businessman, to a politician. When we talk about the Bushes, we talk about Abe Lincoln, one of the greatest icons of in the history of politics. When we talk about just random joke. That's a very intense joke. Just kidding. But personally, I do like Barack Obama. But that does not mean that I agree with all his policies. I don't know much politics. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Good defense on yourself. Because I was coming at you. Just kidding. But yes, it is sad that we have to live with politics, that we have to coexist with politics at the same time. And even the more sad part of it is that politics controls economics. I wish those two were separated, because most politicians don't understand economics. Sorry, politicians, if I'm hurting you out there, or if you're a politician and I think you don't understand economics, I do apologize. Well, I'm not apologetic. Should I apologize? Maybe I should. Brant, thank you so much for joining. How are you doing today, Brant? I saw you came. Hey, friend. Hey, buddy. How are you doing? Is the NASCAR race done? Brant has been very instrumental in terms of growth of this scope. I have to say this almost every single scope, because he's been fantastic in terms of supporting and inviting people to join us, and giving hearts, and asking tough questions. Brant talked with me about spray my wrist once again. Oh no, man, you need to quit then. You need to quit. Keyboard Kisok, of course. Thank you so much for joining. And for those of you who would like to invite your friends and followers to join us in this great scope that we always have. I'm tempted to say every day, but this week, I think this is the first time I'm scoping or something. So I really had a very, very busy week. 40 away from 200. Really? Wow, that's huge. That's huge. Yes, our goal is always to invite at least 200 people to join us in every scope, so that we can all learn from one another. Not quitting my dream on playing basketball. Absolutely, that's the spirit of Michael Jordan right there. That's the spirit of Durant. That's the spirit of the big basketball King James. That's the spirit of Kobe Bryant. Keep the flame burning. Keep the flame burning. There's also, oh man, how do I forget his name? But a great basketball player. I mean, the list goes on and on, basically. The race is over. Johnny Sauter won. Oh, yeah? Nice. Nice. Do you support him? And for those of you who would like to also know how... Don't talk about LeBron. There we go. There we go. I like being corrected. Why LeBron? Actually, I was reading an article about LeBron James, and this guy, I think he was a fellow player with LeBron James. No bad intentions about LeBron James. I do respect him as a player. Oh yeah, I'll pick both because I like to be a troublemaker that way, Bryant, and you know it. Yeah, so they were not saying good things about King James, which was very sad. Oh, you want me to fix my collar? Why should I fix my collar? Is it bad? Thank you. Done. Done. Yes, so what were we talking about? We were talking about, living positively and encouraging and inspiring one another. And if you know somebody out there who would be interested in interview or would like to be interviewed in this scope, I ask people easy questions, questions that are, but the challenge that I'm having is, since I'm not all-knowing, figuring out which question to ask who. Nice shirts and sweet. Looks like you just came from your wedding. I'm looking for a job. Oh, Brant, I thought you got a job in some restaurant. But we're wishing you all the best with your job hunting. Economy is growing, so I'm pretty positive that you will come up with something. You will meet something out there. Basic interview question. If they ask you how much do you want to earn, I was told not to give them an answer. Instead, ask them how much do you pay for this position. Asking question with question. Very wise, very wise. A philosopher. If you tell Socrates that, he would probably be mad at you. Or you can't answer question with question. Can you give me a job? Oh man, can I give you a job? Let me see. Can I give you a job? By the way, any of you guys out there would like to create a job for Brant? Brant is very good with social media growth. So if you're interested in working with him, by the way, he's amazing, and he will help you grow your social media followers, and also help you promote your social media platforms the way he has been doing here on this scope. A great, amazing dude. I would highly learn something in school. Be wise. I'm not wise yet. I was told that wisdom come with age and gray hair, but my hair is still black, man. Maybe I need to go put some baking powder on my head, and that would make it look a bit gray. Hopefully I'll be